Welcome back to the channel. It is Mock Draft 2.0 time here on Wood Talk Sports. It's been about a month since the last one. Don't want to be every week at this part of the season. So I just kind of, with schedules changing, the Saints at one point had the 3 pick. Now they got the 10. Everything can change every week when you're in the regular season. Once you get to the playoffs, that's when I will start going like week by week. But we're gonna get started today with mock draft 2.0. And there's been a good amount of changes, I'd say, in the draft order. A lot of those teams that are still near the top are still near the top. You've got, you've got the Giants, the Raiders, the Browns, the Titans, the Jags. All these teams right here, pretty much been at the top of the list for the entire mock draft period. So those really haven't changed. There's been a couple of changes here. As you see, teams move up and down in record and rankings and schedule with their schedules and all the tiebreakers. But now we're gonna get this thing going, and that starts with pick number one, and that is Travis Hunter. I mean, for Jacksonville, that's the perfect guy for you. Obviously, he plays corner, plays wide receiver. He's in the Heisman race, Heisman finalist, Heisman favorite betting wise. I still believe it should be Ashton Genty, which I'll get into later in a different video. But Travis Hunter is the best athlete in this draft class. He's the best in this draft. I mean, there's a reason he's ranked one on a lot of people's boards. There's a reason that people think he could genuinely do the two-way position thing in the NFL. But I think he'll have to lean more towards one or the other and then play on the other side. He's good at both positions, and I think that he'll probably end up being a corner in the NFL and then kind of like a Deion Sanders, playing corner and then coming in at wide receiver when the team needs it, because Deion would do that for the Cowboys. He'd come in, play, for the teams he played, he'd go play wide receiver a couple snaps and make an impact on the offensive side of the ball. But with that elite of a defender on the defensive side of the ball, if you can get Hunter to focus more on one, I think he could become one of those top players in a position. So we're going to go Travis Hunter, number one to the Jags. And then number two to the Titans. Last mock draft, I believe it was Cam Ward. It was either Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders it was Cam Ward, I believe. It was Cam Ward to the Titans. I think Shadur I had going to Carolina. But Will Levis has been playing good. I would say he's been playing a lot better. He's been able to produce a little bit more with his ability, like his targets. I mean, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and then obviously Calvin Ridley's been having a little bit of a resurgence in the past few weeks. But I think that you still need more. Obviously, getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins makes your weapons room even smaller. You do have Tony Pollard. You do have, what's his name, Tyjae Spears. But I think you need another weapon, and I think you go out and get the best wide receiver in the draft class, which is Tedoroa McMillan. He's got a great frame for a NFL wide receiver. The comp that he's been getting a lot is Mike Evans, and I mean, when you get a guy like Tedoroa McMillan, who's got only one of the two only players in the FBS with over 1,000 receiving yards going on to this point. That's a guy that I really want on my team. Maybe he doesn't have the deep threat speed, but he has the deep threat frame to be able to get a jump ball, and that's the thing that I really like from his game. That's somebody that I think could benefit a lot of teams. A team like even the Browns, who are up next, I pick three. A team like the Patriots, who really have been struggling to find that guy at wide receiver for Drake May. A team even like the Panthers, or the Bengals, who might be losing out on T. Higgins. But we're going to have Tedoroa McMillan going number two to the Titans here. So that is two skill positions off rip. And I mean, no quarterbacks already. And that's the thing with this draft class is the quarterbacks, I like a lot of the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks aren't well polished, I would say. I think Shadur Sanders is my number one quarterback in the class. I think Cam Ward's a very good quarterback, but he has a lot of problems. He plays a lot of hero ball. He fumbles quite a bit. And just that's a big concern. I know in the first mock draft I said Shadur really doesn't have a big problem. He's a very accurate quarterback, a very accurate quarterback. But my big thing with Shadur is he also holds the ball on for a lot of times, just to kind of have that play extended. And then some teams that you might get drafted to, you might not have that time. So, and then Jalen Milroe as well, he's a project. He's very athletic, one of the best, most athletic quarterbacks we've seen in a while. But he's a very big project in my opinion. So it's going to be hard for I think a team to jump onto the Jalen Milroe train, but I also think that it'll happen because there's so many QB needy teams. But for the Browns at 3, I think we'll just start off right now by saying it's Shedeur Sanders because I just said he's my number one quarterback. I mean, I can't pick anybody else, and I think Shedeur really needs to be in a little bit of a better better circumstance. I'd really like to see him in Vegas because I think the way that he is, the way with Dion, that market with Shedeur Sanders would be fantastic for not only Sanders but for also the Las Vegas Raiders. That's very good marketing for the Raiders, especially being in Vegas. They've kind of became the tourist team, not really like having their own fans at their game. It's kind of like a tourist team, and I hate to say that because my own dad's a Raiders fan, and I love supporting the Raiders, even though I'm a Saints fan. But it's like you go see their games. It's like SoFi Stadium. It's like a Chargers game when the other team has more fans. It's basically the Raiders basically play 17 road games because of how many fans will come to Vegas for a weekend. It's an excuse for them. Oh, let's go to Vegas for the weekend. Our team's playing, but. I would really like to see Shedeur in Vegas, but I think him in Cleveland is pretty good. I mean, you don't know with how much longer Nick Chubb did come back. You don't know how much longer he'll be with the team. Jerome Ford, blah blah blah. Running back could be a position they try and get a younger guy in later in the draft. The offensive line is a question. Obviously, you got Jedrick Wills that I don't think is going to be on contract next year, and then the wide receiver room isn't the greatest. You got Cedric Tillman, Jerry Jeudy, and then Elijah Moore is coming back from injury, but I don't know. I think Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in the draft class. That's why he goes here at number 3. And then at number 4, the Raiders go right back with another quarterback, Cam Ward, who I do think is the second best quarterback in the draft class. He's a little bit more polished. He needs to be a little bit more polished. I think Sanders is more NFL ready than Cam Ward and these guys like Jalen Milroe, Garrett Nussmeier. You saw PFF updated their boards. All these guys, they kind of dropped down a little bit. Drew Aller is a guy that, people think that might find a way to sneak into the first round. I don't buy the Drew Aller hype. I think he's very physically gifted, but I don't think that he's a first-round quarterback. Garrett Nussmeier should most definitely not touch the first round after the past couple games for LSU, but Cam Ward goes 4 to the Raiders. I think that's a good pick. Although he does need a little fixing on how he plays. Kind of rely on his team more because he is at Miami. I feel like he's got good pieces at Miami. So, but he won't have that as many good pieces. He'll have a guy like Brock Bowers if he goes to the Raiders. But moving on, we're gonna go with Jalen Milroe now. I think, as I said, I feel like it's difficult for me to say that he's a top 5, top 10 pick. But I think he's a very big experiment. I think he's a phenomenal player. He's a great dual threat. And I think with the Giants more specifically saying we're done with Daniel Jones, we're benching him, they'll probably cut him, get rid of him in the offseason. That's when you say, hey, I need a quarterback now. So even a guy like Jalen Milroe, who will need the progression and need to be built into a true NFL QB, is a guy that I think the Giants will take a shot on. Yeah, Daniel Jones was kind of the same. They did take a shot on Daniel Jones, but I think Milroe has better potential than Daniel Jones, and I think Milroe has proven in college that he can be a very, very, very big impact player at the quarterback position with not only his arm but his legs. So now at number 6 to the Patriots, who I've been seeing. I think they've been top 3 for a very long time. They're at 6 now, but we're gonna go with the first offensive lineman off the board. We're gonna go Will Campbell. a big thing with the offensive linemen in this class is it's not really true tackle heavy. We've seen a lot of the last recent classes have a lot of true tackles, guys that are going to be that cornerstone piece on the end of the offensive line. And the only guy that I really see doing that fully, being that fully true tackle, is Cameron Williams. I think all of these dudes will move, could have the capability to move. Will Campbell could have the capability to move. Kelvin Banks Jr. has the capability to move. Ariante Ursary has the capability to move. Jonah Savaiinaea, I'm working on it. I think he'll full on move to guard, just like Jordan Morgan did out of there from Arizona that got drafted to the Packers. But there's a lot of guard or tackles that could play guard that might be playing guard in the NFL. And Will Campbell, I mean, why not just go get yourself the best option? He's been fantastic at LSU these years. So now with number 7 with the Jets, I've been going Mason Graham a lot. I like Mason Graham as a player. I think he's a fantastic player. Okay, like don't get me wrong. Even though I'm not going to pick him here, I think the Jets need a different thing. I've been looking through how they kind of look. They're going to look for next year alongside some other teams. And I just really think with DJ Reed going, not being under contract, not knowing if you're going to get him back, I'm going to go with Will Johnson. And I think it's because Will Johnson is the best true corner in this draft class. Obviously, you want another good corner to pair up with the guy that you trust in so much like Sauce. So you're going to go with Will Johnson, a guy that's been fantastic at Michigan. And even with Sauce playing not too great, you might want to get another corner just to like make sure you're not too worried about everything. So Will Johnson at 7 to New York for the Jets. Now, number 8 to the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, my opinion has changed a lot on this team. They are sitting, they have 3 wins on the year, 2 wins on the year. 3 wins on the year after 2. They're coming off a 2-game winning streak and a bye. So they will be most definitely beating the Chiefs, as everybody knows. Any NFL fan knows that. But all jokes aside, the Panthers, I'm not going to go with quarterback now. I think that I really do like Bryce Young. I like Bryce Young in general as a player. I think that they need to keep giving him a chance, keep building a team around him, good defense, good offense. The whole team's just a disaster, and the big thing is their edge rushing. Their edge rushing is terrible. I mean, they got rid of Brian Burns, so they kind of have an absence off the edge. And I think when I was looking earlier today, their like leader in sacks I think maybe has 4 or 3.5, and then their leader in tackles for loss has 4. They need somebody who can get in the backfield, and I think that's Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter, obviously, this year has transitioned from an off-ball linebacker to an edge rusher for Penn State. You saw that because of the departures of Chop Robinson and Adissa Isaac in the last draft. And Abdul Carter is a guy that I really do see a resemblance of Chop Robinson. I think the speed's there. He's just the burst off the lines there. I mean, Chop Robinson ran what, a 4.48, 4.48 I think it was or maybe a 4.44. Either the 4.44 was Chop or it was Dallas Turner. But regardless of that, this dude is explosive. I mean, Abdul Carter is explosive. He makes plays happen without putting a stat on the box score, without putting a stat on the stat sheet. He's fantastic. He's my favorite edge rusher in the class as of right now, which we will be doing some scouting reports on later as the offseason hits, because we'll have more time for that scouting report section. But I think this class is great at edge. I mean, Nick Skirton, Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart, James Pierce Jr., Abdul Carter. I think the 2 guys from Ohio State, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. I just learned how to say it, guys. And then Kyle Kennard, who's all the way down here, I think really can sneak into the first round. I think he's fantastic. And then even guys like Jalen Walker, who's listed as a linebacker, who has shown that he can play the linebacker and the off-ball linebacker in drop-in coverage, and then also be a rusher. who I think he's fantastic. I think he'll jump into the first round. We'll get to him later. But Abdul Carter's fantastic. And now we're going to move on to 9, which is the Dallas Cowboys. They've got a lot of problems. They could go. I think Ashton Genty is the sure pick for them. So I'm obviously going to go Ashton Genty. Their running game is so horrendous in Dallas. It's almost laughable. And when you're so one-dimensional like the Dallas Cowboys are, I mean, obviously you don't have Dak, but when you're that one-dimensional of a team and you struggle so badly in the run game, teams don't got to load up the box. Teams can drop 7 in coverage every play, and you just can't get anything going. They've always got that man advantage because they know that your team's so bad at running the ball, they can just drop more people into coverage, and then their edge rushers will get to you eventually. So there's a lot of problems there in Dallas, a lot of problems, like way too many. But that being said, I just think the running back situation is probably the biggest, and I think a guy like Mason Graham would be a very good pick for them as well because Mozzie Smith has been pretty bad, I would say, as a pick for them. But we're going to go with Ashton Genty. Now at number 10 for the Saints, I've been thinking, pass rush is horrendous. They might need to go that. The interior offensive line is bad. Excuse me. The interior offensive line is bad. So I think, maybe they go with a guy like Kelvin Banks that can move to guard. But my big concern as a Saints fan is, look what's happened this season. Chris Olave's on the IR. Shaheed's out for the year. We had to go sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and he's became the best wide receiver on the Saints roster, and he's been on the team for 2 weeks. I think the fact that there's a lack of wide receiver depth in that room is going to be the fall of this team, and that's where Luther Burden comes into play. You've got your Shaheed, you've got your Olave, but you really don't have your slot guy yet. You see Mason Tipton, Bub Means. You see Taysom Hill lining up in the slot. You see Kamara lining up in the slot. It's like you got to find yourself a slot guy, a guy that can get the ball and make plays happen after the catch, and that's exactly what Luther Burden is. He just makes plays after the catch. He's fantastic after the catch. He's going to do that for the Saints because Shaheed's the take the top off the defense type of guy. Chris Olave is just he's a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 1 guy you're going to put on routes. He's not a guy you put in the slot, though. I love Chris Olave. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's not a slot guy. He's not a guy you only run on short routes because Olave finds holes down the field. Luther Burden is a guy that you put in the slot. And, when you have a deep threat, you have a guy that can be a deep threat but also cross the fields, middle routes like 20 yards, 15 yards. In Olave, you get Luther Burden, who can really I would say not really embrace a Michael Thomas role, but kind of embrace a Michael Thomas role. That'd be fantastic for the Saints. Now, number 11 to the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to this is one we might need to talk about a little bit. The Bengals have a lot of problems going on. Trey Hendrickson, free agent. T. Higgins, free agent. Who are they going to decide after? I think they're going to let T. Higgins walk. I think T. Higgins is not going to want to go with them. He's going to go get so much money somewhere like New England. So then you look at retaining Trey Hendrickson, and that's where the D-line thing comes into play. You need to keep that edge rusher. In this hypothetical, I think they do, but they've also got another guy who is a free agent. It's B.J. Hill, and that's an interior defensive lineman for him. So I'm going to go Mason Graham. I think you just got to do something with that D-line. I think that the D-line's horrendous, man, in Cincinnati. You got to do something with that defense. Like, quarterbacks just have time. If Trey Hendrickson's not getting in the backfield, quarterbacks just have time. And so you need to do something with that D-line, something that can just be a big presence for that defensive line. That's exactly what Mason Graham is. So he's going to go pick 11 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, number 12 for the Miami Dolphins. You go different ways here. I think offensive line is their biggest concern, though. Javon Holland is becoming a free agent, so you could very well see them draft Malachi Starks. But I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks Jr. because that tackle and guard position are some needs that they could use, and he can play either. So he's been great at Texas. Despite that Georgia game, though, I think Jalen Walker kind of killed him. But Now at 13 to the Buccaneers, we're going to go with one of the Bulldog players. We're going to go with Mikael Williams for Tampa Bay. He's got the size. He's got a very good size. I think he's an athlete. I've heard a lot of people compare him to, what's his name? Trayvon Walker, the number one pick, a couple of years back. I could agree with that. I could agree with that. I don't think he's the number one pick player, but he's got the potential to be a very good player, just like how Trayvon Walker had that untapped potential. But and Micah Williams could be a very good player, and the Buccaneers need it. They have really kind of lost their edge rushing presence this season. Now, number 14 to the Bears. This is a team that I think will go true tackle, which is Cameron Williams. You just need a guy with the size and the potential to be an absolute anchor on your offensive line, and that is Cameron Williams. I mean, he's absolutely huge. Let's take a peek at his height and weight. 6'5", 335. He plays right tackle for the Longhorns. He's absolutely gigantic, and that is a pick that I would not be upset about because it's very easy. I would say I think it's not very easy, but it's easier to develop offensive linemen than it would be other positions. If they have that much size, you just got to work on their technique. You don't really got to work on, finding ways to get advantages because they're smaller or something. But Cameron Williams, 14 to Chicago. Now at number 15 for the Colts. This one is a no-brainer for me. It's Malachi Starks. He's a top 10 player in this draft. He falls down to 15 because not all these teams in front need a safety. A team that absolutely needs a safety is the Colts. So that's a match made in heaven for Indianapolis. Number 15 will be Malachi Starks. Now at number 16 to the Seahawks, we're going to go to interior offensive line. I know I'm on the tackle tab, but interior offensive line is what we need, and that's Jonah Sava-Inaea. He is going to move to guard. And that's what the Seahawks need the most, is they need that interior offensive line, especially with Connor Williams just now retiring in the middle of the season. They need that offensive line to be improved, and especially in the interior, as I said. So Jonah Sava-Inaea fits that for them. 17 now to the Rams. I've been kind of debating myself, like corner tackle. I thought Jalen Walker for a little bit, but I don't think they'll draft a guy like Jalen Walker because of how good their edge rush presence is with Jared Verse and Byron Young. I don't think they would go with a guy like Jalen Walker, who is kind of like a Micah Parsons, who could play who played off ball linebacker and played edge rusher. Coming out of college and in his rookie season, eventually Micah went to the edge full time, but I don't think they would do that if for their linebacker needs. I think a guy for linebacker that they could use, a perfect off-ball linebacker like Jihad Campbell, would be one of my examples. But so, I mean, with the injury concerns, with the two corners, with Benjamin Morrison obviously coming off the injury, and then Savone Revel coming off the injury, I don't know. I think when a team needs tackle this badly as well, you go with another injured guy, which is kind of weird, but Josh Simmons being there, I know he's out for the year. He looked fantastic in 2024. I just think getting a guy like him would be very big for their offensive line, especially because Matthew Stafford, I think, has been fantastic after Puka and Cooper Kupp came back. That team should let him play until he decides to retire. So what do you want to do? You want to protect him. You're going to draft a guy that will be able to protect him once he's healthy, which is Josh Simmons. Now at number 18 for the Niners, I know this is kind of contradicting because I was just talking about the corners and their injuries, but Jahdae Barron, I think he's a good corner. He could possibly jump in the first round. We're going to go with Benjamin Morrison. I think he's good. The Niners, could use a little bit of corner depth. I know they just re-signed Lenore, and then obviously Charvarius Ward is coming back, but I don't know. I think something just tells me the team could use another corner. From what I'm looking at, you have three corners on the field most of the time. So Benjamin Moore, not most of the time, but I think Benjamin Morrison's a really good player, and I think getting a younger corner on that squad to kind of just be able to develop as some of you do. Because, I mean, yes, it's a first-round pick, but you're not always going to have these first-round picks starting day one. I mean, look at the number 3 overall pick. He didn't start until about a couple weeks, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. So these guys aren't plug and play instantly plug and play. I mean, some of them will be, but not every single one of them. So that's why I'm going to go Benjamin Morrison here. Now for the Broncos, I really do think tight end is the choice here. I think the tight end that fits their system the best, which would be more of a passing game with, obviously Sean Payton as your head coach. Bo Nix looking fantastic. You want to get an extra weapon, you might as well just get a big slot receiver in Colston Loveland, who's pretty much a big slot receiver. He is a tight end, but he's just really not always a blocking tight end. I don't think he's always down off tackle, right next to the tackle, and he's the ground and pound type of tight end. I think he's the perfect tight end for a Denver team that's kind of been going towards that passing direction. A guy that you can make a big slot, a guy that you can put, right near the line, but not like lead blocking. A guy that just a fast tight end that's so happens to be big. So Colston Loveland, I think he's great. And goes 19 to the Broncos. Number 20 now for the Falcons. Here's where one of my favorite players recently goes. That is Jalen Walker from Georgia. Falcons need linebacker help. They need edge rush help badly. Their edge rush presence is horrific. It's bad, man, and they just keep ignoring it. And that's why when I especially when I watched the draft, I know a lot of people were confused about it, but when I watched the draft and saw them draft Michael Penix Jr., my first thing was why they already have Kirk Cousins. Mine was Leatu Latu, Chop Robinson, Dallas Turner. All these guys are available, and your edge rushing is horrendous. Your pass rush is terrible. Why are you picking a quarterback that probably won't start until he's 27, 28? I think they get it solved here in Jalen Walker, and I think he's a very, very, very great player that, as I said, could move into a Micah Parsons role that plays both that off ball and that pass rush, and then maybe choose one or the other down the line of his career. I think he's one of the better overall all-around guys in this draft, and that's why I think he goes 20 and jumps into the first round for Atlanta. Now, 21 for the Houston Texans. We're going to go interior defensive line here. It's more of a contract situation for them. They do got guys at defensive line right now, but looking into the future, you're getting a guy for 5 years. That's why I'm going to go Kenneth Grant. He said that he's one of the two, as I've said last time, I believe, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant were said to be gifts from the football gods by Harbaugh. So I think there's really not a world where he drops out of the first round. I think he's fantastic. So I think he needs to be a first-round pick. And then we'll go into 22 with the Cardinals. Now, for the Cardinals, man, I could really go some other ways. Last year they just draft Darius Robinson. But I really do think that they could go edge rusher again. They could obviously go tackle. I think they could go a guy like Wyatt Milam or Ariante Ursary. I think they're going to go Nick Skirton, though. I think they'll go edge rush. Nick Skirton's a big edge rusher. He's about 280 pounds, I believe, 285. Yeah, 285. And he's good on the pass. He's good on the run. And he's a guy that I enjoy watching for Texas A&M. And I think a guy that can be a big factor for Arizona. I think the offense is starting to get things together. I mean, they're in a good spot right now. What are they, 6-4? But just beefing up a defense, beefing up that defense just a little bit more with a guy like Nick Skirton. You get him, and then your last year's other first round pick in Darius Robinson, who is, I think, 297, 298 at the combine. So that's pick 22 for the Cardinals. Now at 23 for the Commanders, I also have them going edge rusher. They need the edge rush presence as well. There's a lot of teams that just need edge rushers. Obviously no Montez Sweat, no Chase Young because of last year. We're going to go with James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. His upside's fantastic, and he's just athletic. He's a freak, and that's something that Washington needs is a guy just on the edge to be an absolute monster. So James Pierce Jr. 23. 24, I'm going to go what I did last time, which is Savone Revel to the Baltimore Ravens. I think once he gets healthy, he'll be good again. He was great. He was good at East Carolina. Go Pirates. But now to 25 for the Chargers. D-line, tight end, could go either way. Joey Bosa's kind of getting there in age, but I really do like Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren is a really, really good tight end. You've even seen it all year. I think he'll win the award in college. I can't think of which award it's called right now, but oh man, that's embarrassing. But Tyler Warren's been fantastic for Penn State. I mean, he's been the key pivotal part of their offense, whether it's pass or run. So Tyler Warren to the Chargers. And then 26 to the Packers. Packers, I went with defensive line. We're going to be going into the interior. They could use an interior. It's either Tyleik Williams or Walter Nolan. I mean, both of these guys are really good. Or, don't get me wrong, Derek Harmon is a very good player. I think the ADP of 90 is very disrespectful on what he is. I think he's one of the better defensive interior linemen. I think he'll rise into the first round. People just got to start watching him more and realize it. Oh, this guy's pretty dang good. But we're going to go Walter Nolan at pick 26. And Walter Nolan has been good for Ole Miss. I think he got hurt in that game against Georgia. Don't get me wrong. But I think he played. I think he's fine. Walter Nolan's been great. It has been great. And I think he's one of those guys that really did rise up very quickly. I mean, in the last mock draft, I think his ADP or something like that was 4th round. So I think that was unreal to look at. But Walter Nolan will go 26 to the Packers. It fixes that defensive interior need. Now, 27 to the Steelers, I'm still not changing. They absolutely need a wide receiver. We're going to go with Emeka Egbuka. Could very well be Isaiah Bond. I don't know if Isaiah Bond could even go into the first round. Either same with Egbuka. One of those two, I think, really is a priority for the Steelers. Getting another guy. I mean, Mike Williams looked great against the Washington Commanders with that touchdown catch. George Pickens has looked fantastic with Russ. But I think that's a guy that's just adding to that wide receiver room to try and beef it up more. Now, for 28 to the Vikings, Aaron Jones, I actually didn't know this last time. Aaron Jones is going to be a free agent come this offseason. And there's a lot of good running backs on this board available. Amarian Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins. My choice, though, is Caleb Johnson. He has looked fantastic. He's averaging, 7.1, I think, a carry. And he is near the top for rushing yards. Obviously not first. We all know that is Ashton Genty. But Caleb Johnson is the only reason why Iowa looks competent on offense. And the reason they score points now, So I think he is a running back that should jump into the first round, or a guy that I would use a first-round pick on to get that fifth-year option. So Caleb Johnson, pick 28 to the Vikings. Now 29, though, to the Eagles. We are going to go with edge rusher. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart. I was just looking into him a little bit more right before this recording. And he's a guy that, has the athleticism. He has the explosiveness. Maybe he really only has one move off the edge, and maybe that could use some improving and working. But, I mean, he's very consistent. He's very good at what he does already. And I think he's a guy that it says that the last time he ran a 40 was a 4.7. I think he could very easily get that down to the 4.5s. I think he's an explosive player. And that's why I think the Eagles take a chance on him with the edge rusher position being a need for Philly. Now, number 30 to the Bills. We're going to go back to interior defensive line, get a big presence in the middle, and that's where Derek Harmon comes in. Derek Harmon has been great for Oregon. He's the transfer from Michigan State. I believe this is his first year at Oregon. But he's been looking great for the number one team in the country. He shines in those big games, those big spots where you need him. more specifically, I know this is funny. I just said big games, but when they played Idaho, he looked really good in some of those crucial moments for the Ducks to not lose to the Idaho Vandals. And then against Ohio State, he also looked very good. So I believe he was the one that got the strip fumble from Judkins as well. I think so, but he'll go 30 to the Bills and 31 to the Chiefs. With this one, we're gonna go with Ariante Ursary. I think tackle's just a concern for that team, so I think that's a need that they need to fix. Their team's pretty good regardless. I could really see if Tyler Warren or Colson Lovin fall to 31 with how old Kelsey is, maybe going tight end. But I'm going tackle. And then to end it off, we're gonna go to edge rusher. This spot, I mean, I'm a little hesitant on who I picked, but I'm gonna go Kyle Kennard. I just think with the way that he's been able to perform this season, I mean, he's at 10 and a half sacks on the year. The production is there, and he's making his presence known to offenses in the SEC. And that's a player that I really do want on my team, and the Lions really need to figure that out for the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. And even with Aiden Hutchinson's big injury, you don't know how he's going to do for the rest of his career. So I wish the best for Aiden Hutchinson, though. But they're going to go edge rusher Kyle Kennard to wrap up our first round. And that's going to be it for this one. Here's a quick look at the board. Obviously, Travis Hunter going first. Josh Simmons going 17th. Tedero McMillan, sure, blah, blah, blah. You can look at a more deeper, pause the video if you want to look at it more. But I'm going to end it here. And I appreciate y'all for listening through all the way. If you're here at the end, and like and subscribe if you liked it and all. But we'll see you soon for a new mock draft, maybe some college football stuff. But see you in the next one. Peace.